Hi, everybody. My name is Melle Amade Melkumian. I am the host of AI Publishing Formula, and I am greeting you today to talk about my personal story. As part of our effort to help people not only understand AI, but to see specifically how it can help in your publishing business, we decided to do a case study. It's May right now of 2024. We are going to be running this case study until the end of the year. We'll probably continue it. This is the introduction. We're going to do a lot more detail inside of our course, but I wanted to make sure that people were introduced to the challenges that I've been having in writing, and that they can see by the end of the year how AI can really help you with some of these personal challenges. So this is a really personal talk. I'm going to start off just by telling you a bit about my history in publishing and what impacted my publishing and some of the challenges that I've faced. I started publishing in 2016. That's when Jamie Culican, my seven-figure author partner, and I met, and we published books at the same time. My first book was Sanctuary, which is up there. And this is a book that I'd written for 3 years, and I had sent it out to hundreds of agents. I had 72 rejections when I came across Derek Murphy, and I was still stuck on traditional publishing, and he said, "No, Mel, just self-publish it. It's good," and that one voice of support really made me think like, okay, I've been a professional in corporate marketing and technology as a marketing director for years, so I knew how to write. I have an MFA in film, a degree in design and communications as well, but I've learned storytelling, so I know a lot about plot and structure, and I'd applied all those to this book, and I had also had it reviewed by a number of my close, traditionally published author friends. So I came out with this on the market. It did well. I'm going to show you my numbers in a minute. But what I wanted to talk about is the urgency that came after I hit publish, because like many authors, I thought the challenge was writing a book. And then what I discovered after I hit publish on Amazon is that the challenge is actually keeping up with publishing, keeping up with marketing, keeping up with your readers, what they want, what their expectations are, and trying to find some limits and areas in there that you can actually fulfill with your normal life. Most of us don't start off as, hey, I'm going to be a full-time author. That's something that many people aspire to. I will tell you, in my life, it's not actually my aspiration. My aspiration is to write great books that people want to read. Now, if I do that well, and if I market it well, and if I publish it well, that means that ultimately I should be earning an income I can live on, which I haven't done yet. However, I also really love being involved in corporations. I really love the challenges that arise there. I love what I learn in there. I love the camaraderie that I have in the office place. And I have a really great company where I help them drive AI into their enterprise. So because of these things, I kind of had like a mindset that was like, oh, this is fun, let's do it. Let's see how successful we can be. But my personal goal was never, I want to quit my day job and be a writer. And the other reason why I felt that way is because I didn't want to turn writing into work. I really love the creative process. It feeds my soul. It makes me feel magical in a way that I can create these things. And we're going to talk about that in our fourth podcast where we talk about how does AI fit into writing and content creation. And I'll explain a bit about how that panned out for me in terms of how I use AI in my publishing and what I'm interested in learning AI techniques. So back to the beginning. So in 2016, at the end of the year, I came out with Sanctuary. It did well. I was able to make, I think, about $1,000. We'll look at those numbers in a minute. And it was great. I was on my way. And so then what I realized is, and this is, you know, I was very heavily involved in 20 books, and it was very much like, hey, you've got to write a lot of books, you've got to write to market, you've got to write quickly. So all of a sudden, once I published that first book, the pressure came on. And I connected with a couple of other really, with authors that were starting out and with other authors that were doing, you know, large 5-figure months. So I was able to expand my community in a way that gave me both sides of the story. So I ended up writing 4 books in the Sanctuary series. I started rushing them. I started making books 3 and 4 I was never completely happy with. And in many ways, I feel like I rushed the ending of the love story that's in there. I also didn't know about, I knew a lot about marketing. It's my wheelhouse, but I didn't know about marketing books. And I also didn't know about right to market, even though I know a lot about high concept filmmaking, which is the same, it's same as right to market, it's just for film. So that's how studios come up with films. They, you know, they get their one-liner, like it's Godfather meets, I'm thinking Sleepless in Seattle. I don't know how that works, but they'll come up with these kind of pitches, and if it makes sense, then studios will start to develop the idea. My idea was, if I were an animal, I would want to be a bird because then I can fly. I had no market research. I had no idea that if I wanted to write shifters and make money, I should be writing werewolves and vampires. So I did what I do, which is I followed my heart, and I wrote a series that I still love to this day. They're about to get new covers, so I'm super excited about that. The new covers are beautiful. They're also discrete covers in keeping with current market trends, and I'll be sharing those in my case study, and we'll watch together to see how those actually work, if they actually make more money or drive reader engagement, etc. So after Sanctuary, I started messing around, and I think this is a good time to start looking at my books. So let me pull up my Amazon page. And I have unpublished a number of books because what I was trying to do is I was trying to find my place. I was trying to find what I wanted to write, and I was paying attention to all of these other groups where people were writing urban fantasy, they were writing paranormal fantasy, they were writing, you know, werewolves, dragons, reverse harem, all these things were coming at me, and I couldn't really decide what I wanted to write. And so I genre hopped, which is not recommended. When you think about all those well-known authors, you know, J.K. Rowling comes to mind. She's written one type of book. I mean, she's written things under pen names and editions, but essentially she's stuck to one world. Other authors stick to a type, like Clive Cussler. They, you know, the thriller mystery action book. So there's the best authors build their, sorry, not best. The most successful authors tend to build their brand around a single genre, and then they take those readers and they expand on those readers, and those readers say, hey, this person writes these great thriller books, so if you want to read great thriller, check out this author. So that's the type of information I know now. But in the beginning, I was following my creative muse, and I wrote a whole bunch of different books. So I'm going to run through, these are the ones that come up when you first go to my Amazon page. Over the intervening years, I had read the Game of Thrones books. I loved them. So I decided I wanted to write a reverse harem Game of Thrones with a lot more magic. And this is the second book in that series. I originally titled it Harem of the Knights, but that wasn't allowed on Amazon. So I changed the name to The Knights of Valiere. So that series I've only delivered 2 books in because it didn't sell very well. I'm going to get back to PWF in a second. I started writing a YA dragon reverse harem. It's very innocent, but it's set in a dystopian world. So it's got a lot of different, almost a genre mashup. And I co-wrote that with Jamie Culican. We've never really marketed it. It doesn't, it's gotten to book 2 in the series. And I think, we made we made one mistake there that kind of didn't launch the series as well as I think it could have done. And I think we may be relaunching that at some point in this case study. Order of the Regent is the first book in the Knights of Valiere series. And then, of course, we have the Sanctuary series. If I continue down this path, let's see if I think we'll see. So I've unpublished a lot of things. So I messed around a little bit with paranormal romance in The Contagion of Blood, which was written before COVID. And there were a few other series. I had some bare-chested paranormal romance books that were spin-offs from the Sanctuary series. So these are ways that I tried to elevate my brand or find my brand or look for ways to become a popular author. But I made some bad choices by genre hopping instead of sticking to where I actually had customers and readers. And this was with originally the Sanctuary series. But what happened was I got a little tired of just writing clean YA. And that was only after 4 books. So then I did all these other genres. I wasn't doing very well, not only in sales, but on a personal level. And I want to talk a little bit about some of those personal challenges that I had, because I think it's really important to remember that we're not just authors, we're also human beings. And many of us are working with our day jobs. We have children, we have husbands or spouses, and life can get really demanding. And I think if I'm going to get to that one in a second. I think this one will show you. Nope, that's a month. Okay, so to give you an idea of my life, I want to take a look at this. This is the total earnings that I have made over books in the last 8 years. So I'm not upset about this. It's awesome. I'm proud of myself for actually making some revenue. My accountant isn't that happy, but this is where I'm at today. My overall revenue in 8 years has been a little short of $28,000. So now let's look at what happened. I pretty much stopped publishing. So I want to talk about this, and I want to try to not get too upset by it. But I was working a very serious job in 2018, and it was as a marketing director in a tech firm. It was very demanding. I had a 2.5-hour commute. I was still writing books. I did it by dictation. We'll talk about that further in the case study, not this session. But that commute slowly, I live in Los Angeles, and I was driving across LA. I was getting up at 5:30 a.m. to get to the office by 6 so I could leave by 2 so I could get back to my part of town so I could drive my kids around to all of their evening activities. And I would get home by about 6:30, 7 p.m., cook dinner, and then go exhausted to bed. So if you can imagine, that doesn't leave a lot of creative spark. It doesn't leave a lot of marketing time. So that was all at where you see this decline, is where I started having challenges emotionally and time-wise. It got worse. there's something I didn't realize at the time, and I am going to talk about that in this video. But what happened was that I started having, actually, I'm going to talk about it now. I started having anxiety attacks and depression. So today, I understand that that anxiety and depression was actually caused by the onset of menopause. That was not on my radar. I went to a lot of doctors. I started looking at what the problem was. I thought it was my job. I thought it was my commute. But I would literally be sitting in my office at work having a panic attack because I couldn't remember where I parked my car that morning, and I didn't know how I was going to. And we had a single multi-level parking garage, and I would give my staff the keys to my car and say, "Could you please find my car and bring it to me?" That's how bad it was, because I couldn't leave the office without having that level of support. So then I got laid off from my job, and that started giving me tons of self-doubt about my higher ability. Just to let you know, today I am 50, not today, it's not my birthday, but I'm 55 years old. So if you count backwards, I was about 49, 50. No big shock that I was going into menopause, but it's talked about a lot more today than it was then. So I had no idea what was going on. So I got laid off. I faced a lot of like emotional crises. I wasn't ready to go back to work. Fortunately, I was laid off with a package, so I wasn't required to. But you would think, wow, this is a great opportunity. Melle can start really plugging herself into those creative juices. But I didn't have it in me. I didn't have that level of energy and that level of capability. So I did a lot of hanging out by my pool, and I did a lot of crying, and I did a lot of talking to my friends, going to doctors, trying to figure out what this was. And in that entire process, nobody mentioned menopause. At the end of 2019, my mother got sick, and I was grateful that I was not working and I was able to take care of her. So I went, she lives in California also, but about 8 hours north. So I spent a lot of time traveling back and forth and staying up there, even though I had younger kids at the time, and taking care of my mother. And she passed away October 5th of 2019. And it was devastating. I had a huge hole in my heart, and anyone who has had this experience probably understands what I'm talking about. And it was almost impossible to write. However, what you'll see is there was a little perk here. And these titles that you see are not, I already had Order of the Regent written, so I thought, okay, let me take, let me publish something. Let me try to get out of my slump, even though I was dealing with deep trauma. And I was seeing a therapist because my husband's a psychologist, and he obviously recommends and supports that as well. So I came out with a new book, and at the same time, I'm the youngest of 5 children, and my brother told us that he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. He lives also in California, about 4 hours north of me, and he started to require more and more help. So even though I was working in February on promoting my books, you can see Order of the Regent goes up in value, and then people were starting to look at Sanctuary, and again, these other books that are no longer published. This was March. I was starting to see an uptick. And then if you look at April, everything drops off considerably. I was still not, no, I had started working. I was working at NASA at this time. And NASA was very considerate in letting me work remotely in order to help my brother. And my brother passed away in April. And that we had not even been able to deal with my mother's estate at the time. And her estate was clean and tidy. You know, she had a trust, but we inherited a ranch, but we couldn't even go in the house because we were so busy taking care of my brother. And when I was over at my brother's house caring for him, I was getting calls from, you know, my daughter, who at the time would have been 8 years old, and she was crying every night on the phone asking me to please come home. And you know, obviously I wanted nothing more than to come home and hug my kids, but I couldn't do that because my brother really needed me, and my sisters were there also, so there was support. But it was a really, really difficult time. And if you'll remember, in March of 2020, my children's school shut down on March 13th of 2020. And my husband and my mother-in-law stepped in a lot to help with the responsibilities of the children. April 22nd is when my brother passed away. And then if you look at the next few months, it just goes down to virtually nothing. And it went down to nothing because I was in deep, deep depression. In the world was gray. When I remember, you know, sitting by my pool and I'd look out and I have a beautiful backyard. It's green, it's lush, the birds call, there's flowers, there's fruit trees, and it all looked gray to me. And that's the best way I can explain it. So backing up a little bit here, and I'm sharing all of my trauma because I know we all go through trauma. I'm not alone. And it does impact what we do, and it's okay to take a break. And this is what I did. So what happened in July of 2020 is that my father's wife passed away. And my father had passed away 5 years earlier, and she inherited his estate, which was meant to be left to his children. My father's wife decided to leave it to just my father's sons, but because my one brother had passed away already 3 months earlier, she determined to leave it to my one remaining brother, which is her prerogative. But what it meant is that my brother basically abandoned our family, and we have no longer have any contact. And he has 3 wonderful kids. They have kids. So in the space of, you know, from October of 2019 to July of 2020, I lost more than half my family in a series of events that I am, you know, like what comes to mind is a series of unfortunate events. I don't mean to be cliche, but that is exactly what happened. And I was really angry. I was really hurt. I was really in a poor me state of mind. And I wasn't functioning well. So if you look at this, you can see that absolutely relates to where my publishing career was. So then I was taking medication at the time, and you can see slowly I started a new pen name. And what you can see here is I decided to go to Sweet Cowboy Romance under the name of Katie James. And the reason I did this is because I was so sad and so disappointed in where my life was. Yeah, working at NASA was amazing. And I was very inspired by that, but it was also very difficult. I worked in advanced mission concept development. So basically things like figuring out how to get a spaceship out to the Oort cloud to get a sample from one of the ice rocks floating around out there. So things like that were taking up my entire mind. So I wanted something fast, easy, and fun to write. So I started this series about sweet cowboy romances. I came out with a book a month. They were 25,000 words each, and they found an audience. it wasn't a huge audience, but I was doing well. And you can see all the top books there are from that series. Then the series started to dip a little bit. I wasn't doing much marketing. And then I started the second series that was attached, and that's To Tame a Rancher's Heart. I didn't put the same care, love, and inspiration into that series, and it stopped doing well. And so I decided, and this is where those decisions and genres really come into play. I decided I'm going to do a different genre, and I'm going to go back to publishing Melle Amade books. This is where I think I made good choices. And if you ask my opinion, I would say clearly the meds were working better. And I also, I left NASA and I started a new job that was closer to home, a little more routine, and a little easier to handle. And it was still as a marketing director, but it was really, it was stuff I've known for a couple of decades. So it was really easy to think about. And this is when I came out with Midlife Witch Unexpected. Now I had started to realize that I was not only in midlife, but at this stage, I was 50, 51 years old. And is that right? I think my math is wrong. I think I was 52 or 53. But I wanted to start writing for older women because reading about 25-year-olds, what was not really what I was into at the time. I was trying to figure out menopause more, and I was starting to really think, like, what do I need in my life? So I came up with a series of books. It's the Cougar Creek Coven, and I decided that it was going to be about a group of women who come together, and they're all from different, they're a diverse cast. One's a werewolf, one's a vampire, one's a witch, one's a psychic, all these things. And each book in the series was a different character story, how they discovered the new them. I always, now in hindsight and the things I've learned, I've realized that menopause is really, it's another coming of age. It's another, for lack of a better word, puberty experience, because your hormones are changing. You're losing a lot of your estrogen. You're wondering where your place is in life. So there's a lot of things that were going on internally for me that made this genre really attractive. And so I started publishing the Cougar Creek Coven series. And as you can see, as the other books came out, they got traction. And every month I was coming out with a new book. And we see, let me just show the bigger picture. We see that this book is doing well. But there were still some things for me to figure out. So you can see my income dropped a little bit. And I also started doing a few other things. I did a Kickstarter with the whole series, but I started, let's see, I decided to write Monsters of Midlife because I wanted to try a trilogy romance, which I'm really attracted to, but it wasn't quite in the paranormal women's fiction genre trope, which isn't so much about a romance trilogy, which would be something more like paranormal romance or romantasy. It was, so I was kind of mixing the genres, and I wasn't sticking to what was working for me, which was this group of women coming together at an older age to find companionship and camaraderie. So I sometimes have an emotional viewpoint of my publishing. Jamie Culican is like a machine. She just markets. I'm a bit more of a romantic. I market when I feel like it. And so that's one of the things that we'll be doing in this case study to shift. So Monsters of Mayhem came out, and then the last book I also rushed, which was Monsters of Midnight. And I wasn't a huge fan of it. I came up with a plot block, And I think I approached it the wrong way. And I'd almost like to rewrite that book, which I'm sure, many of you have felt about some of your books. The last books in my series, I always feel like I don't quite bring it. And that's what we're also going to be looking at in the case study, are the quality of my books. At first, it was like, it was a little bit, I wouldn't even say it was hard to hear. I'm always willing to take, my baby out and have people tell me it's ugly. Not my actual children, they're adorable. But, I went to film school. We wrote every day, and people always told us what was wrong with what we were writing. So for me, it's never been that bad of an experience. And I'm not that emotionally attached to my books, but I am always inspired by income. And when I see that a book's not doing well, I decide, hey, I need to write something different. I decided to try something which is Hunter Jones and the Sword of the Middle Ages. I'm staying in paranormal women's fiction, so I thought, hey, I've got this genre, let's stick with it. But the challenge with that is that I was trying to introduce, again, a different trope into the genre of PWF, paranormal women's fiction. And Hunter Jones was, again, another romance, but it was like an Indiana Jones meets paranormal women's fiction. And that did not get the same traction as my Cougar Creek Coven series in the slightest. You can see by the numbers here. So then I didn't publish for a little while. Is this 2023? Oh, I can tell you exactly why. I had moved companies again. And this is another thing. It's like, I like change. And I'm a little, some people don't like change, but I do like change. And I decided I wanted a bigger challenge in my job. So I took a job in back here in August of 2022. It was a terrible job. It was high demand, high pressure. I often report to CEOs in my, wherever I work, and this one and I did not connect. And you can see that impacted not only my sales, but it impacted my writing as well. So I don't think I was doing as great a job. And in March of 2023, AI came out, and I decided that I wasn't going to work for the company I had been at. It was a short experience there, but I was very happy to leave that experience. I didn't do a ton of writing at that point. I was still trying to figure things out. And that's when I really started digging in. And it took me years, as you can see, digging into the effects of menopause on your psyche, on your physique, on your on how you function, and on your creativity. So I wasn't publishing here. And then what happened here? I had a big uptick in Cougar Creek Coven in August. My guess is that I decided to do more advertising, and that is what started to pique interest. But I still was living on not a savings. There was a settlement with the company I was employed at. So I was living on that. And it wasn't for me, because I wasn't earning enough from my book sales. And we're going to talk about the business of book publishing, where you invest what you earn back into the business rather than using your own cash. So that was not really sustainable for me. And I haven't written. We grew our AI business. We started really doing well with that, teaching courses and showing people different ways to use AI in businesses. And so I have, over the last few months, let my business languish a little bit. And I'm just showing you all of these details because I want you to know how challenging it has been for me personally to build a functioning running business based on everything that I've been through and based on the fact that I like having a job. So let's take a look at where we are today. This shows you my earnings last month. The reason why I want to show you this is because we're going to compare this every month and look at where we are doing. Now, it's already May 10th, so I don't expect any huge uptick in May, but we will start looking at how can I market my backlist? How can I improve my backlist? How can I find more readers? And how can I hone in on my target of PWF, which I've decided through a number of ideas. Look, I want to be the next romantasy, household name too, just like everybody that I talk to, or not everybody, but a lot of authors I know are trying to hit that market. But I've decided I'm going to stay in paranormal women's fiction, where I've had a lot of success, where it's turned evergreen, and a lot of success by my terms. And I'm going to build that genre. So we're going to be looking during this case study that we're doing over the next 9 months. We'll be looking at my monthly income and talk about the exact steps that I take in order to increase my income. And I want to be really clear, this is an AI case study. So based on everything I've told you about my life, we're going to look at how do I use AI to make my life easier, to make my business more manageable, and to make it more manageable according to my personality. So it's going to include time management tools and tricks. How do you clean your email box? How do you focus on what's important? I do use Kanban boards. How can AI help me create a better Kanban board? How can I stay on track? How can I analyze my book sales and my marketing? I'm going to show you how to create pivot tables using AI in Excel to really look at what's working and what isn't working in your business so that you can stay focused on the areas where you make money. It doesn't matter where you start. As you can see by what I've shown you, what I have is not a lot to go on. There's a lot of hits and misses. Last year, I earned a total of $4,472 in my books. My goal by the end of the year is to at least hit this number, and I've got a long way to grow. Let's see what I've earned this year so far. Does it have that? Yes. So this year we are currently at $1,156. So between now and December, my goal is to make $3,000 more dollars. Let's call it $3,500 in my book publishing business. The way I'm going to start with that is creating a vision board. I'm going to use AI to do that, and we're going to use some AI mindset tricks, as well as I'm going to bring my husband in. He's a very renowned psychologist. I know the word. He specifically deals in financial psychology and intermittent income earning, which is exactly what authors deal with. You can Google him. His name is Alex Melkumian, and he talks, on CNN, Fox, and New York Times, and all the places. So we're going to bring him in to talk a little bit about the mindset that you need to increase your income. Then the other thing that I haven't mentioned so far, because it doesn't show up in these numbers, is that I did a whole moment of Vela. And that's where I think that report is right here. Yeah. So you can also see that where I was publishing in 2022 through 2023 was on Vela. And you can see that, these are for specific dates. I was like, no, there's a better report than this. Let's take a look at the lifetime royalties, and that's not accurate, because if you go back and look at my royalties in Vela, they were coming up with some decent numbers every month. So this should be added in, and this is what we can use Excel and a pivot table for for looking at which platforms were delivering what income depending on the genre. So we're going to do a deep analysis of what all that means, and we're going to figure out a way to increase my income through using AI in my publishing business. So I think that was about the most of what I wanted to share today. The way that I am dealing with some of my challenges, I see a psychiatrist, and I've limited my medication, so it's just one small dose, but it does help me keep running. I sometimes still have anxiety attacks, on average about one every 2 weeks. They're related to, my children, not my publishing, but money. Money's an issue. As everybody knows, the economy's gone crazy, and the challenges of just making a living has been a hot topic and a big concern for all of us. I have a bad habit of reading the news. My husband and I have family in war-torn countries, and it's been on my mind. So these are some of the things. So I'm not reading the news anymore. I'm trying to stay in my box a little bit. I do hot yoga 5 times a week. I've been doing that for about 6 months now. And what that's done for me is it's able to increase my physical strength, my flexibility, my mental health. And I'm also digging much deeper into the effects of menopause and the different supplements that I can take. So I'm going to end the case study here. I know I've dropped a lot of personal information. I've dropped a lot of different topics. I'd love to hear what your challenges are, what you experienced, whether it's menopause or publishing or work, being laid off, family tragedies. I don't have a better word for it. Please, you can talk in the comments. If you want to share privately, you can find me everywhere. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, and my email address is available on the AI Forces website. I'd love to hear from you. I'm very excited to basically show you how AI can help you manage your publishing business and make more money. So if you have any questions or comments, thank you so much for listening to all of this. And I really look forward to talking to you about your publishing business as we move forward.